Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. I have the honor of bringing on a true pioneer in the real estate space from the Washington, D.C. metro area. A native Washington, a washed up D1 college player, Harrison Beecher is a managing partner of the Coalition Properties Group. Serving the D.C. metro area affiliate with Keller Williams Capital Properties, Harrison was honored by the National Association of Realtors and included in Realtors Magazine 30 Under 30, class of 2016. Harrison currently served as 22 president for the Greater Capital Area Association of Realtors, or GCAR, for those who are wondering, and also served as an at-large director for the DC Association of Realtors. Harrison served as a 2022 chair for the Broker Engagement Council and serves as a national NAR director. His team is number one large team by size in DC and number four large team by value in DC by Real Trends Verified. Lastly, Harrison is a Swan Bowl Power 200 top executive of 2024 watch list candidate. Everyone, please give it up for Harrison Beecher.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Harrison. How are you today?
Doing very well, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on, man. It means a lot. It's a true honor.
My pleasure.
Yeah, man. Dog. First things first, man. Can we start with your career? Like, where did you start? What company did you start with? What made you want to begin Coalition Properties? And like, how was it during the pandemic? I see you started in 2019. How was it pivoting during those times? And where do you want to take it for the next 5 to 10 years?
For sure. So I actually got into real estate right out of college in 2008. So I'd had an 11-year career before we came together in 2019 to start Coalition. And what's really cool about us forming and coming together was it was a very natural synergy between my business partners, Keith James, Ryan Butler, and I. Ryan Butler and I are friends from college. We went to Georgetown University together and played football there. So we had already had the trust and the relationship, and we had some overlapping circles of friends. So for us, it did make sense to partner up because we had some alignment just in terms of knowledge, relationship, and people. And then our business partner, Keith, he is just the most natural and dynamic salesperson I've ever met in my life. Like, he can go from meeting you at an event to having you in a buyer consult to in your home in 20 days later. Like, he is the most amazing natural salesperson ever. And our alignment is that we do all of these sales activities, but we also care to give back, to set examples, and to do more than just closing deals. It's our mission at Coalition to be the bridge to our community for all things real estate, lifestyle, and wealth building. And through that lens, it allows us to have real estate as the platform that just opens up other opportunities, conversations, and really speaking possibility to everybody that we work with. Because, as you may know, in some marginalized communities, man, they don't have the same examples of folks that have just been owning properties for generations, leveraging stuff, investing, commercial, like all these other things that we know are possible when you own that first piece of real estate. So it's been an awesome ride, a journey, and a blessing to be able to do what we've done thus far. But we are still working to innovate and stay relevant and continue to grow in a smart way with this new market that we're moving into.
No, amazing. What do you think was a turning point in your career journey for you to start Coalition? Like, what made you what made you just want to just ramp up and just start something brand new?
It's a great question, man. In terms of a turning point, I had always, the advantage that I had was a bigger than normal network of people that I was already connected to. So in college, that was the beginning of Facebook. Shows you how old I am now, right? I was someone that had thousands of Facebook connections when people only had hundreds early on. And I worked in nightlife in DC. So while I went to Georgetown, I was a DJ and then bouncer and then did some nightlife work too. So I had a bigger network of folks who were looking to me for experiences, but also just connected with me in general. So when I pivoted to real estate, I found some success early with being able to do seminars, home buyer education. It was so long ago when I got started that the Obama tax credit for buying your house was out. So I was talking about that big, to a bigger audience than most. And my advantage was that I had more people already looking at me and that I was already in touch with and trusted me. So I just had to pivot my message to them a little bit. Fast forward to Coalition, I had about a decade of success in figuring it out and, the 30 under 30 and a bunch of other things. But I was asking, what could I do to further increase the scale and the scope of both the impact that our business has and just the people that I get in touch with, man. One of my favorite phrases I want all people in sales to own and realize is that when you make your world bigger, when you intentionally make your world bigger, nothing bad happens. So for me, looking at the different ways I could make my world bigger outside of just my own individual efforts with my feet and hands and running around was the biggest impetus behind forming Coalition and a team. But I'll be blunt, man, when you move up to something like that, that is a enterprise business instead of just an individual sales business, your profitability goes down. Right? Like my income as an individual salesperson was like this, like this, like this. As we started the team, kind of went here, then went there a little bit. But then after the team stuff got going, it really went up. But then over the last year, as markets have changed, it's stabilized and gone down a little bit, right? So like those are the kind of ups and downs that happen in business. By having an organization like this, though, there are other streams of income and opportunity that can create, revenue in the midst of my individual sales being down. So like you form a team because of the mission. You also do it from a business standpoint to be able to have a little bit of diversification of where your income comes from. But it takes effort and it takes investment. It doesn't just come like you start, I do it, then I make money through the roof. No, there's a lot of hard costs, salaries, like a bunch of things that you have to invest in that are different than when you're just an individual agent. And that's a really cool part about this business, man. You can do it in any way you want. Just for me in this chapter of my life, this has made the most sense because of the scope and scale and the diversification of income.
Nice. It sounds like you're dealing with a lot of moving parts, and it sounds like you have a really thick skin and a strong gut to ride that roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so bringing on new agents. Let's say, what's your advice for someone starting out in this industry? Like you're saying, it's a tough year for most. What would you recommend for a new agent coming to you for them to have a successful 24 and them to ramp up in 2025 and take off?
Yeah, so we're moving into a market that is really going to be focused on skills. What are the skills that you have to bring to the table to be able to justify what you get paid on the buy side specifically and on the list side as well? So my question to anybody coming into the market right now, and actually it's funny because a lot of times I feel like TV and real estate are BS. I'm really enjoying the Owning Manhattan show with Ryan Serhant right now.
Everyone's talking about that. It's funny.
And look, a lot of them are kind of BS and whatever. And we've done some TV stuff too, and a lot of it's fake. But what's really powerful to me about one of the episodes is he has a young agent coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm looking for deal flow, and I'm looking for consistent income, and I want my support." And he looks at her and asks her, like, "What do you bring to the table? Like, what have you done? What, not what is your potential, which everybody has. Under the God's green earth, everybody's got potential. But what is the work that you have put in to earn income and opportunity? Like, what is that work?" And what I feel like a lot of folks coming into the market now, maybe they're still thinking it was like it was in 2020 and 2021 when there was an abundance of opportunities just coming at everybody because there were so many people in the market. But that is not the case. Like right now, you've got to really decide, how are you going to go create your business opportunities? Are you going to go hunt for them? My analogy I use, are you a spear hunter where you're really focused and tactical and looking one specific effort here, here, here? Or are you a net hunter like we are? And you have to hunt either way. When I say net hunter, what does that mean? I create messaging, I create opportunities, I create events that attract people to me. And then my challenge is having a correct net, a correct system behind me to capture them as they come and then work them through my sales funnel after I've attracted them to me and they are in my sales funnel, right? But either way, it has to be a very active posture, meaning you are doing things daily, bi-weekly, monthly, right? Consistent activity to get in front of people, to increase your skill, and to articulate to them how you can actually help them better than all the other folks that they're looking at. Because as I look at this next market, man, what I think we're really coming into is an environment of extreme transparency that we didn't have before. And that extreme transparency freaks people out because historically, folks that have been around 15 years or longer like me, right, there were a lot of things we didn't have to talk about. We didn't have to talk about how much we get paid, how we got paid, right? Agreement signing, like, oh, no, we cool, handshake, like, I trust you, let's do it. It's like, no, you have to be transparent about what you are making to the penny and transparent about what you are doing to earn that dollar to the penny. And if you're not comfortable and you can't articulate, someone can't look someone straight in their eyes and say, here's what I'm going to earn and here's what I'm going to do for you, more so. That's the big skill differentiator for anybody looking to get into it. But I honestly envy some of the folks that are coming into it right now, because you're going to see both an exodus, I believe, of folks that don't have the skills, don't have the guts, don't have the communication skills to talk about the change and what's going on. And they were lamenting or missing the way it was before. Like, that's what I hear about a bunch of folks that have been around for a while. But if you're coming into the business new and right now, you got to make sure your skills are up in terms of how you communicate. You got to make sure your knowledge base in terms of how you are researching and knowing the market and providing tangible value is up. And then you got to be comfortable with conversations that historically a lot of people weren't comfortable with. How much are you going to pay me, and what am I worth? What am I going to do for it, right? Like, those are the main buckets that I think people moving forward have to get better at and lean into. And on our team, we're all working through this, right? Because it's new. So a lot of the trainings and conversations we have around are the specific conversations about what are you going to do? What is your value? And what do you get paid for it? Those three buckets. Those conversations always existed, man, but people used to not have to have them in the same amount of depth or have them face to face with everybody watching. Right. So that's the new world we're in. And, I think it will have impacts on the number of people in our business and in all the industries. But, markets go in cycles, man. We had been in such a hot cycle for a while. This is an adjustment. In some way, it's not a crash by any sense, but it's an adjustment. Who can ride out that adjustment and still be here and be good and have their feet on the ground for whenever the up cycle comes back, going to kill it,
No, it makes total sense, Harrison. It makes total sense. I'm glad you're putting in that system and structure in place at your office, man. You guys, it sounds like you guys are really going to take that on head on and execute and bring that to life. And what's the biggest lesson you learned so far in your career so far?
Oh, man, it's just in the time we're in now with all the political conversations. It was something I heard this past weekend that wrong and strong can beat out right and slight, or something like that. And it's not that extreme, but the lesson where that comes back to business is, when I was earlier on in my career, I discounted that I didn't know enough, imposter syndrome, was unqualified. Like, there's no way I could help X buyer, X seller here. But I had opportunities come to me, and the fear and the lack and the doubt of myself stopped me from even putting my hand in the ring to say that, hey, I'm qualified for this listing, for this buyer. Like, I want to work with you, I want to help with you. And the encouragement I want to give to a lot of folks, you do have to have that skill set we're talking about, or you got to have people close to you that know what they're doing. But you are more qualified for the business opportunities than you probably think, because most people make a choice on who they're going to work with based on who they talk to first. Like, who you talk to first gives you the highest probability of actually converting and closing that business. I didn't fully understand that before. And what I'm seeing now is that there are people that beat me out for business sometimes, and they have no reason that they should, from a qualification, from a knowledge, like my neighborhood here and there. But why did they get to that person? They were there first. So if you're, have any concept of lead conversion and getting new business, speed to lead is a phrase to keep over and over again. So when somebody reaches out, raises their hand, whatever, get to them, have a consultation, have a conversation, and get an agency or a listing agreement in front of them ASAP. Because a lot of times, if you're the first person there and you're the first person that is actually listening, talking, communicating with skills, right? It's a combination of both. It's mostly presence, but then the closing ability is skill, knowledge, resources. But just get there first. And if I could have told myself anything back in the day, I would have been like, dude, get there first. You're qualified. You're going to probably just get a shot because they like you anyway. Even if you don't know it, like, don't discount what you don't know, because if you have the relationship, that's most of the time what you need to know to get started. And then you work your skills and increase your skills with the more repetition that you get. So speed to lead, show up first, and you are more qualified than you think.
Well, being at the right place at the right time is really true words never spoken up about. What do you think is the key to maintaining a work-life balance, and how do you apply it in your life?
I think early on, man, if you don't have that much to balance, like now, I got 2 kids, right? I got 2 kids, a little work-life balance looks different for me than it did before I had them. I'm honestly grateful, and I've never met a high-level entrepreneur, someone that built something on their own fast, that at the beginning had this work-life balance they talked about, right? Like, at the beginning of any growth journey in business, it's going to take an imbalance of work to rest and other things. Like, you're going to be doing more than others to get more output, more input, more output. That can't last forever. And you have to and I guess this is me showing my geriatric millennial. I feel like Gen Z is a little bit more conscious about like work-life balance early. To me, I wasn't, but I made a lot of freaking money when I wasn't. Okay. So it was the trade-off that I knew what I was getting into, and it was okay. And I stuck with it for a while, but you will burn out if you're not aware of it. So I think there's got to be an acknowledgement of not necessarily balance all the time, but this concept of counterbalance. So if I've got a season or period where I'm doing a lot of extreme activity, no rest, not taking care of myself well, you need to acknowledge that, have people around you that you're listening to, listen to yourself, listen to your mind, your heart, and say, okay, I've got that season of kind of extreme activity, and then I'm going to swing it back the other way and relax, take some time off, restructure, do things. Like you can't, and I know people in this business, very good friends, top producers, they have lived in this extreme frenzy activity for a long time, and they've made a bunch of money, but they're miserable. Right. So I've seen that. I know it. I don't want that. I was there for a little while, and my kids and family have forced me to kind of swing back here. So I'm constantly seeking the right amount of balance between both. But I won't say that everything is possible, but the most successful people I know acknowledge more of a counterbalance strategy than a perfectly middle balance all the time, because of the nature of what we do, right? Markets come in cycles. Opportunities come out of nowhere. They are time sensitive. So that being said, you've got to either have the systems and people that can always cover your opportunities when they come up, or you've got to cover them and pounce them, and then acknowledge that if there's too much of that happening at one time, then you've got to slow it down, take the break, counterbalance the other way, but then dive right back in to whatever is the right pendulum swing that makes sense for you. And everybody's got different capacity. Everybody's got different energy. Everybody's got different, things going on in their world. So those that have the more time and availability and are willing to outwork others, they're probably going to make more money and do fine, but it's not going to last. Like energy is a finite resource, right? So you got to know yourself and know what the right balance is. But if you're trying to make a lot of money and do a lot, you're going to work hard. You're going to be a little stressed. You're going to be a little tired, but you shouldn't stay there forever.
Nah, makes total sense. But you have super self-awareness, brother. Like really great self-awareness. And I love that you're working to live. Most people in America, I feel like they're just living to work, sadly. I hope they can one day work to live, just like yourself. And what's the most challenging aspect of being in your role in today's world in 2024, you think?
Well, because of the nature of kind of my individual business right now, I both have to service my clients that need help with buying and selling, my team, right? That from a leadership standpoint of the activities I have to do on our team, like I lead recruiting for our team. So I'm having conversations with new agents and people coming into the business and supporting the ones that are in our organization. And then I've got this other bucket of volunteer service and leadership with the association, which is something I don't get paid for at all, but I'm passionate about and I think is very important. So to me, the biggest challenge is really just creating the time structures to adequately support all of those different buckets. And like we said, it's a counterbalance thing, right? Spring, May and June, when things were nuts and business was popping, I'm more in the business side, right? And working to get the family and everything in here balanced as well. Then there's the team, which is at the same time business is popping, team stuff is popping. I got to pay attention to it. And then this fall is always a big association time. Like I'm chair this year, like an update to the bio that you read. I am chair of NAR's conference and meetings and conference committee. So I'm helping plan our 15,000 person annual conference in Boston this fall in November. So that's another big just part of my brain and mind and heart is making sure that big conference goes well, because there's never been a more important time for us as realtors to get together and talk about what's going on and figure out the right ways to, make 25 great and beyond. So, right now it's really just about finding the right time balance, counterbalance to address all of those different buckets in life. And, I'm not perfect at it. Like I said, sometimes it's good, sometimes bad, sometimes completely out of whack. But, right now I'm aware of everything on the board. And it's just making sure that in a weekly rhythm, there's something being moved in every bucket, right? Like the problem that I think a lot of folks come into in entrepreneurship in general, or not having somebody tell you what to do every day, is when you are your own boss, when you got your own business, when you got a lot of things going on, you've got to be aware of all the things that need to happen, but you got to give yourself grace and honesty to know that you cannot touch and address everything that needs to happen at the same time. You got to be aware of it. You got to know about it. But this is where discipline and structure and, quite frankly, some other support in your life helps you organize, kind of categorize and prioritize what needs to what needs to be addressed in what order. Because if it's just all out there in a big jumble, you're like, oh, got to do a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, you're going to go crazy. And you're going to do everything terribly. So like, how do you prioritize those things? Has been really my focus and goal. Like Mondays, like after we get off here, is really tackling a lot of my priority list that I wrote up last night. And I live by those. And if you don't have that kind of structure and organization and your calendar isn't structured, then you are not going to do any of this stuff. You're just going to fail at all of it.
No, man. No, but you're better at juggling, better than 99% of people out there. I bet. And then, what's your take on the future of the industry? Besides what's happening in August, how do you think the industry is going to change? Like after that?
I mean, look, there was already commission compression, right? Like people complain, like, "Oh my God, commissions and our income is going to get tanked. Like we're not going to make money." Blah blah blah. The fascinating part is, man, people with money, the wealthiest folks in our market that have always dominated and run real estate because it is a legacy money institutional wealth, sector of our market, they're going to be fine. And they're still going to pay people what they are worth when the folks in their world provide value to them. So as I look at it for kind of the rest of us that don't serve the upper, 0.1%, there's going to be commission compression because affordability is challenged, right? Because of market conditions with supply and demand that are still, even though the rates are up, our supply and inventory locally has ticked up a little bit in the last couple months, but it still does not meet the demand. It's not a balanced market. That is going to have a bigger impact on commissions and income as just natural market forces. The changes in MLS, the changes from the Burnett-Sitzer lawsuit and what we're going to have to do and how we talk about commissions is going to push some people to a space where they're going to make less because they can't communicate. They haven't gotten agency agreements signed. They can't explain what they get paid, how, or build out structures for it. But then for other folks, they're going to kill it. Like I've seen already in MLS, at least from my small kind of, microcosm of a market sector, buyer agent compensation being reduced in some places. But that doesn't mean that total listing compensation is down. Like, right, with some of ours, we are, because of the knowledge that there may be more unrepresented buyers, more work that we're going to have to do in communicating to people that maybe are not going to afford or can't figure out buyer agency. That means the sellers may need to pay us more to navigate all of that for them. So, the one future, piece of advice I tell folks is continue to increase your skill set and have a way to support sellers and listings, because that is still going to be a crucial and important part of our business. Also think in the language of flexibility and programming. What do I mean by that? I'm just going to show you a house and get paid whatever is in MLS, because that's how it goes, and I hope that number is good enough, is not the way buyer agents can work in the future. You have to have a good buyer consult where you explain to people what you get paid and what you work for. Is it a flat fee? Is it a percentage number? Whatever your number is, you decide it, you explain it, and you tell them what they get for it. You then have to be ready for multiple conversations through their buying process. If that number is not offered by the seller or they're not offering anything, how are you going to help your buyer client navigate how they are going to pay you for your support? If they can't pay you for your support, what do you do then? What other options are on the table to still maybe support them in a limited capacity for less money? Maybe find out or seek out other contractual options. Like, what are the options that exist for us to still support and be in transactions? Because at the end of the day, I'd argue that consumers still need professional and knowledgeable support through real estate transactions. Just the way that they pay for that is going to change in some situations. I don't think it's going to change completely right away, but it's going to force us to have multiple conversations we did not have to have before, right? There were some folks who just said, "Hey, met you on Instagram. You want to go see a house? Cool. We'll go see a house. They're going to pay me something. Awesome. I'm excited for that. Thank you. And oh yeah, we'll sign that agency agreement thing later, whatever." No. What people need to be aware of right away, the same way a lot of folks got a postcard this spring after the Burnett-Sitzer lawsuit came out, where they said, like, "Oh, if you've sold a home in the last 8 to 10 years, call us today because you might be entitled to compensation." Like, they're trying to build up future class action lawsuits. The next class action lawsuit pool that's going to happen, I'm calling it now, look at the date, you're going to be out showing a property with your buyer client. Mm-hmm. If you did not sign a buyer agency agreement with that buyer client, they're not really your buyer client, for one, but you think they're your buyer client. You could run into somebody waiting outside of a new listing. They're going to have a suit on. They're going to walk right up to your buyer client, right past you, look them in the eyes and say, "Hey, did this realtor get you to sign a buyer agency agreement or no?" "Oh, they didn't? Cool. Here's a document. We're forming a class action. If you'd like to make $20,000 to $30,000 in a lawsuit against them, let me know. I'd love to help." That is the reality of what can exist in our market in the fall and winter of 2024. Like, there will be infrastructure for ambulance chasing lawyers to do that kind of thing. Now, am I nervous about that? No, because before I'm out showing properties with anybody, as I've always worked, we've got an agency agreement signed. So it's a non-starter for me and my clients because we good. But if folks that are not getting those agreements signed are out in the field working, you're gonna get taxed. It's like legit. Like I like Mafia and Sopranos and those type of things. Like, you're gonna get taxed if you walk around the streets without your actual infrastructure and documentation in place. So it's a pretty simple equation. When you're servicing your client, you have to explain what you're doing, explain what you're getting paid, and get that payment structure and idea confirmed in writing. If you don't do that, you are exposing yourself to a lot of risk, and quite frankly, your broker, your team leader, everybody else around you. So for my team members, I'm like, yo, we're not doing any buyer agency activity without an agreement signed. Period. It's a simple answer. And if folks aren't understanding that, aren't leaning into that, aren't good at having the conversation to train around that, then there's going to be some risk for them. And that's what I am foreseeing will happen in the future.
No, that the buyer agreements are non-negotiable from what I'm hearing. And we're living in a generational moment where you really have to be like a creative problem solver to succeed in this market. And in the next 5 to 10 years, do you think we're going to be buying with blockchain, or do you think we're just still going to be writing the contracts the same way we are right now?
I think blockchain technology and even the concepts behind crypto make a lot of sense. And I think that they will be a part of all of our future economies. The challenge is going to be getting governments to adapt and regulate in a reasonable way that it still works, because it's the appeal of crypto and even blockchain technology originally was, it's unregulated, it's open. Then people start getting their stuff stolen, and they go back to the government and say, hey, help me, like, this person took my stuff. Yeah, it's unregulated. So there's got to be a balance, right? Like we talk about counterbalance swing. Like when it started unregulated, Wild Wild West, people that were in it early made a ton of money, are still making good money. Now it's in this kind of middle ground where you're starting to hint at and learn of some more regulation. I do think it will save a lot of money and will be the most efficient way for, specifically in the title business, for property transfers to happen, and looking at title records. Like, that should be a non-fungible ledger on a public platform that everybody can see. Like, why is that private? You know what I mean? But will the governments, local governments, because here's a problem, it's local and state governments that do a lot of property registration, tax structure, like all that. And there's, not just 50 states, there's thousands of local registrars. Once they get with it, or once somebody finds a way to communicate to the boomers and older that are in charge of those little local state things, I think it'll come around. So it's important for us to know, acknowledge. I'm definitely much a futurist, a technologist. I appreciate it. I just also acknowledge the reason for some regulation and some structure to protect people, because it's, scammers are at an all-time high right now.
No, you're completely right on that. You're completely right on that. What's your favorite book, podcast, or article that's had a significant impact on your life and work?
So on the real estate side, I jokingly call them the Bible and the devotional for real estate sales. The Millionaire Real Estate Agent from Gary Keller, Jay Papasan, is the Bible. Tells you what to do if you want to sell real estate. Read it, read the chapters, do what it says. It'll work. I've done maybe 30% of what it says and found some pretty good success. Then the devotional that helps you structure your days and kind of know what you need to do, and I actually need to read it again. Every few years I go back and read it again, is The One Thing, also by Jay Papasan. And it's just about, like, of all the things I could think about and work on and do, if I got to focus, what is the one thing I need to accomplish or get done today so that it makes everything else in my life either easier or insignificant, right? Like, what are the things I can move the needle on? And that really helps entrepreneurs really get structured about specific activity instead of just ideas and hopes and dreams and wishes. So Millionaire Real Estate Agent and The One Thing, always recommend those. And I've actually got another one I just finished right now, because I'm an audiobook guy. My ADD is set up to where I can't really finish books that I read when I open them up. Hold on, I'm sorry. Let me pull this up right now.
Well, you're continuous learning and just mastering your craft, which I applaud you for.
Yeah. Oh, right now, Shift. It's another Gary Keller book. Shift. The reason why it matters is it talks about how you have to increase activity when markets shift and go down. and there's a lower conversion rate. Like one of the agents on my team, Abel Geber Michael, is one of the top multifamily listing agents in the city, right? If not the top. What he does for 4 hours a day is just bang out phones and call multifamily owners. He used to only have to make 10 to 12 calls to set an appointment. Right now, it's taking him sometimes 30 to 40 calls before he sets an appointment. And he's a master at this. He's been doing it for 8 or 9 years, right? He's good. So what that tells me is that there are just less people, right, that because of rate environments, because of other things, that are willing to sell as easily as they were years ago. So what the Shift book talks to you about is looking at all the different activities you do for lead generation, creating conversations, creating deal flow. You got to do more of it. You got to do more of it. Like your conversion rates go down. What do you do if you still want to make the same money? Do more of the same stuff, right? Or pivot to different things, but you got to increase activities. Like that's the way you don't just survive, but you thrive, because guess what? Once you've gotten into the rhythm of increasing activities, gotten the structure around it, if the market or when the market stabilizes or goes back up, you're going to really skyrocket, because that's now your normal, right? Of doing a little bit more activity. So Shift, The One Thing, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Those are the 3 books everybody needs to read right now.
You're thank you for paying it forward to the ones listening. And while you really gotta attack the grind head on, you can't run away from it. And if you weren't in real estate, have you ever pondered what would you be doing, or has it always been real estate that's been your calling?
DJing. I love DJing. I love nightlife. I love and it's interesting because there are so many parallels between nightlife and hospitality and what we do in real estate. Right? Yeah, I mean, look, it's being able to read people, it's being able to anticipate what they're going to need and do it. The best DJ sets I've ever done, and I did it from started in my sophomore year of college and then kept DJing for about my first 5 years in real estate at night, because that helped me pay the bills while I was out, working, with clients during the day. And I actually used to do a bunch of weddings and private events. And I got a ton of clients that were people I DJ'd their wedding, sold them their first house, sold their second house. So it's been a really cool kind of life cycle. But the parallel between excellent DJ service or hospitality experience in real estate is that people are looking for you to curate, right? Something for them that is special, that gives them what they're expecting, right? That wows them with executing on what they're expecting, but then surprises them with something extra and new and special that they enjoy, but weren't quite expecting there. So that's when we take those kind of 3 different bucket approaches to our client experience, and that's what separates it. And for me, man, there's nothing like, festival culture is much bigger now. It used to not be as big, but like when you go to see certain live shows, like somebody like Diplo or Fred again, like these guys that go out of their way to give you what you came to expect. They execute on what you were coming to expect, and then they just blow your mind with this thing. You're like, I didn't even know that was going to happen, but I love it. Like, thank you, and I'll never forget it. And I'm going to text my friends, and I'm going to tag them, and I'm going to go talk about it more. That's, if more people could take that approach to kind of what they do with their client experience, with their marketing, it will help, create raving fans and create people that want to come into your world just because you do such a good job.
Now, you're giving an exceptional user experience. You're resonating with them in a certain way others don't, and you're giving them that fulfillment. Thank you for sharing that. For sure. And I know you touched on it earlier, but is there any other pieces of advice you wish you would have received earlier in your career besides speed to lead?
We talked about speed to lead, reaching out to folks you're more qualified. Build in some type of rhythm. Like, I'm never going to tell people to cold call, because I'm not a cold caller. Like, that hasn't been mine. However, if you do not already have a big network of people, right? If you don't already have folks that are active connection and you're in touch with anyway, you will have to add some form of cold lead generation to your lead gen structure. What does that look like? Open houses, super easy, right? Like, why more people aren't doing more open houses, especially right now, blows my mind. Because that's a client that's raising their hand. They're walking in saying, hey, at least I'm curious tangentially, if not right now, then in the future. All you got to do is know the house, have some value, have something else that you can offer them that gets them to an appointment with you. And it's so much easier. Like, they literally come to you. So if I, could go back again, I would have gotten better at open houses and done more of them early, because that's the most natural kind of cold lead generation that I would like to do. Because I just know from a skill set standpoint, I'm never going to be like Abel on my team that's just banging out the phone for 4 hours. Like, that my brain would explode if I had to do that. But I feel like new agents should find some form of cold lead generation, like legit meeting strangers. Get into the habit of doing that early. Get used to getting rejected. Get used to the frustration. Get used to it not working right early on, because the more you do it, the more reps you have. It is simply a game of numbers, right? The more of those you can do, if you get consistent with it, you can pretty much predict your income, because it's just a matter of how many of those outward facing touches you reach for or do to how many agreements you get, how many appointments, agreements, contracts, checks, right? Like, it's the funnel. And, while others have to kind of sit and wait and say, oh, I hope more business comes to me. Nothing's happening. My phone's not ringing. The folks that are going out to get it, in whatever way they go to get it, they're going to be good always.
No, you're right. It truly is a game of activity. Like, whoever has the most activity is probably has a better odds of winning in this industry.
Period.
Yeah. What's if you could change one thing about the industry, what would it be and why?
Well, I think I don't want to say what's going to happen. This concept of raising the bar, people say that a lot. They throw it around. What does that actually look like? Mm-hmm. If it were harder to get and keep a license to sell real estate and be a realtor, I think less people would do it. And I think we'd have less issues with bad behavior, with poor customer service, with people not caring, with people, just doing it half-assed. So, yeah, I feel like if it were, and I don't know exactly what that looks like, and I do a lot of work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, right? And I acknowledge that if you didn't have a background in money, if you didn't have another plan or somebody else supporting you, this is a really hard business. Completely commissioned sales is a hard business to get started in without some type of, either hustle, underlying income, or mom and dad or auntie cutting you a check. So, I say raise the bar, but then I also say I want, and we need to have a wider diversity of people that are salespeople that can support everybody in the market. And it needs to be a balance between raising the bar from a requirement standpoint, but not eliminating, diverse groups from getting into the business at all, right? Because it's a business, both are needed. Everybody needs to be serviced. But I think the last couple of years, and even everything with this Burnett Sitzer lawsuit and the buyer agency changes, are really coming about because of some of the, either lack of knowledge, lack of effort, lack of professionalism from some of the other people in the business. And again, it's a huge industry, right? We're the NAR historically has been the largest trade association in the country. At our peak, we were close to 1.6 million members. You think about pipe fitters, teamsters, boat workers, right? Like, there's no other association bigger than realtors and what we've done. And the association did a great job for a long time of supporting members, giving resources, and those resources and things are still there. I just think the bar raised to actually get into the club to be a member should be a consideration. I think if that happens, because again, you can still have a license, you can still do your deals on the side, wholesale, whatever, but not everybody should be in the straight up customer service, customer facing, and helping folks navigate the biggest transaction of their lives. Like, you know it, right? Like, some folks probably just shouldn't be doing this, but they're here and they did it because maybe it was a quick buck, it was easy, like, I'm gonna try. I wish that sentiment were changed, and I think raising the bar, making it harder, not necessarily more expensive, but harder to get, would have an impact positively.
Nice. Now, thank you for sharing that. Would you like to share any other misconceptions or anything that's misunderstood about the real estate industry in 2024?
Commissions have always been negotiable. Like, we say that a lot, right? Like, people get, I feel like it's kind of trite at this point to be like, commissions are negotiable. Why are you making me say prices are fixed, blah, blah, blah. But there's a difference between what we know to be true from being involved in the industry and what the consumers and what everybody else in the world thinks about the industry from the outside. We've got to give grace on both sides and realize that because we're in it, we do multiple transactions in a month, week, year, whatever. The average consumer does what, 2, 3 in their life, right? Like, ever. So we can't get mad at somebody for having misconceptions about us when they have such a limited interaction with us and they're only looking at us from the outside. So as sales professionals, as realtors on the ground and in the business, we got to get better at explaining what we do and explaining how it works, right? And explaining it not just when I want some business from you, but explaining it in a thoughtful way that you can come and access it to get educated and learn the truth of your local market from me, from us, from the people on the ground, instead of just looking at the random TikToks from the folks that, aren't really selling or already have a thing in their head that like, oh, lenders, realtors, title, attorneys, everybody's against us, just squeezing for money. They're evil. Like they don't care. And the truth is that's not the case, man. Like folks that do it well and do it at a high level, we do care. Like one of my most important points of explanation in every consult for buyers and sellers, straight up, our interests are aligned. Our interests are aligned. What does that mean? When you are happy, when you are successful in whatever you've hired me to help you do, that is the world that I want to live in and exist in, because when you're happy, you tell your family, friends, other folks about me, that creates future opportunities for me and my business to feed my family. So this idea that I'm just trying to like hustle, push you through, put you in a bad situation, whatever, is not the case, right? Like I'm a relationship realtor. My team focuses on those relationships, on being the bridge, right? Like I welcome the call when something goes down in your house a couple months after closing and you need help navigating it, right? Like I can't predict everything that's going to happen in the future. I'm giving you the best advice with the information I got at the time, and I'm confident that we'll be all right. But stuff comes up all the time. And just because stuff comes up doesn't mean it's my fault, but it also doesn't mean that I completely absolve myself of action or responsibility to help you. And that's a different posture, right? And I wish that more people would understand that is the posture of more of your more successful and productive realtors in the business. And then there are other folks that are just here for the check, and that's fine too, right? Like it doesn't all have to be love, and it can be transactional, right? Like that is okay too. If what you want from a sales professional is just transactional and limited service and here and there, that's fine. And I think we all need to be okay with that and not say, oh, the FISBO or the person just wants me to write the offer, like they're wrong. Like, no, they're not wrong. They're a consumer. They want what they want. So if that either works for me to be the person that helps you, or it works for whoever they find that agrees to do it. But consumers are not wrong in their desire and what they want. I just think that we can, as realtors, as folks on the ground, can do better with articulating kind of the reality and truth of what we do and articulating it in a way that people can consume it, get it, and not just when I'm trying to convince them to work with me.
No, thank you for sharing that, Harrison. It means a lot. What's the most courageous decision you made recently, and how did it impact you?
The most what decision? Sorry?
You're like a courageous decision you made recently?
I mean, it's a little different because we're both on the sales side on the ground and on the team side. We're just looking at other investments and things that we can do to position ourselves in different places in the industry, specifically in the education and thought leadership space, to have a bigger presence on YouTube, to have a bigger presence on our socials. That takes investment. And we've, made the choice to make some further investments to really, work to establish ourselves as thought leaders and have more content out in the street. So, that's courageous because it takes money. It takes commitment in the midst of, markets that aren't always certain, but it's definitely the right move. And, I'm confident in what we know and what we've seen and done and how that can help people, especially in this market that's coming forward. So, stay tuned on all of our socials for more announcements on some, products, classes, educational offerings that we're creating to help people navigate what's going on and do it in our way, right? Like it's not cheesy. It's not a hard sell. It's, the reality of what we've seen on the market with a little bit of seasoning that, we've put on all of our stuff.
No, you have the giver's gain mentality. Like in 6 years, that's going to pay dividends for you. I can already guarantee you that. And you're making communities better, which everyone's going to like realize, like, trust me, you're going to become, you're going to, it's going to lead to good for you. I can promise you that. How do you handle criticism or negative feedback about your work if that's ever occurred?
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. I mean, the majority of the negative feedback I get is really just a speed and a timeliness to communicate directly to the client what needed to happen. There's a line between, respecting their wishes, listening to them, because, in DC area, man, you deal with a lot of type A, very smart, very intelligent people. And there's a balance between not offending their intelligence and what they know and what they assume and are passionate about, and just telling them what they need to do. So, the feedback I've gotten most recently is, after the fact, I know everybody kind of has to take their own journey to get to a decision. And I am definitely one historically that is more willing to let them go along there, get the bumps. And then at the end, it's kind of like with my kid, like saying, all right, I told you what we should have done. You wanted to go this route, and here's where we are. I think most recently, and especially in this market where a lot of people have some anxiety about how September and October are going to look after the changes, the more direct, the more blunt, even at the risk of upsetting them and offending them, approach is better, quite frankly, because we don't really have the same time to waste like we kind of did before. So yeah, just being a little bit more direct and blunt has been the thing that I'm working on, especially with my past clients. People I already got close relationships with. I'm friends. I tell them what needs to happen. I just am working on telling them what needs to happen sooner instead of letting them kind of discover it through the process.
Now, your candorism is going to go far. Your candorism will go far. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Man, gosh, that's a good one. Any historical figure and why? I did a lot of work in college. I was a studio art major and theology minor. So that was, random. But I also did a bunch of African American studies work, and I talked a lot and did different speeches about Malcolm X. And the reason he comes up to me first is he was definitely somebody that through his life had different versions of himself, right? He had different spaces that he existed in, different ways he expressed himself, and ultimately lost his life because of his unwillingness to deviate from what he believed in, who he was, and what was important. And I always am intrigued by figures like that can look at the path of like personal loss, risk, even death, and say, you know what, I'm going to double down. I'm going to stick with it. I'm so convicted. I've got so much passion for this that it doesn't matter. Like I will lay my life on the line. So like I would love to talk with him in those last couple weeks as he knew what was about, because he knew it was coming. But he didn't deviate. And that's the type of, like, you talk about like passion, commitment, like next level. Like that's something that few humans, really have in the world. And he's got a legacy because of it. And we still talk about him and other figures like that because of it. So yeah, I'd say on the spot, I'd say Malcolm X, just because I just want to like talk to him about where his mind was in those moments of commitment, knowing what was about to happen.
Nah, both of you guys are visionaries, and I hope you manifest all your goals and dreams. What's the story behind your most memorable success and failure, would you say?
Man, success. Gosh, this is a tough one. I mean, I think the most memorable success has been Coalition, right? Like what we've been able to do in terms of having 3 partners, 3 young men, 3 young Black men, be able to put up the numbers we put up, 1,700 families served, coming in on $750 million in production since 2019, since we came together. So like we sold a lot of real estate and, kind of done it our way, done some really amazing events, raised a lot of money for charity. I think the biggest success part of it was just being willing to take the risk. But then also, in this moment, realizing that we're evolving, we're growing, and that we got to constantly be willing and open to the next chapter and what the next kind of iteration and what the next evolution of a really successful sales business looks like, right? Because sales businesses are cool, but they are not, they're not the be all end all in terms of business success. Because I think the most successful, people in the world are those that can have their business, their operation, continue to operate and, quite frankly, thrive without them being there every day to touch it and do something with it. So while we are entrepreneurs and business owners, we don't really have an enterprise level business because we still got to do stuff in it every day. So, I think it's been a success thus far, but arguably, I won't say failure, but like that's been a growth opportunity for us, is still trying to figure out how we can have the best systems, the best people, the best overall product, right, that allows it to still thrive and do its thing without us touching it every day. And it is not there now, right? Like we still got to do so much in it right now. And that's really the hope eventually that it can get there, if it gets there, right? Because that's the thing with a lot of businesses. You try stuff, you do the best you can with what you got. But also you got to realize that, not every business is meant to be this 25, 30-year thing that continues to grow and goes on forever, because a lot just aren't, right? But they can do a lot of great, do a lot of good things while they're around and what they are, but then they can pivot and evolve into other things. So the biggest success has been us growing. And the only failure that comes to mind that I can talk about is I had a very high net worth, high price point client right before the pandemic that came into my life, came to me from Yelp, actually, randomly. And it would have been my biggest deal ever. We wrote a bunch of offers at the 15 plus million price point, which in DC is like,
1% of America, yeah.
Yeah, right. Like world, right? A really, really wealthy person.
The world, yeah.
What I learned from them is that they were super dope. They liked me because I was an outsider, because I wasn't in that 15 million plus business, and I responded to them and pounced. Where I failed was not continuing to push. I took the same approach that I was taking with that person that I took with my $400,000 or $500,000 client, specifically around budget, saying that like, oh, if you told me your budget, like that's all that you can do. Whereas at that price point, a couple $1 million swing up or down, even $5 million swing, whatever, right? Like they can do it. And the mindset I should have had is show them all the things, find it, get them to write offers on all the things instead of just staying within their little bucket, because I was afraid of offending or pushing or taking it too far. And in hindsight, I had a lot more authority to help drive and create and put them and convince and sell them on the opportunity they needed, instead of just being a passenger along the ride. Like, oh, I'm just happy to be here. This is cool. And that was, again, 4 years ago at this point. So I've learned a lot. And as I've had subsequent higher net worth individuals, been much more the driver, say, here's the product you want, here's what it costs, let's go for it, instead of, oh, like, sorry, nothing exists, like, we'll wait. Like with all clients, you got to take that approach of like, all right, if here's what you want, I'm going to show you the product that you want right now. If you can't afford that product right now, then for most folks, you got to pivot either to a different location or pivot your search to change your budget, right? But for the higher net worth folks, you show them the product they want, probably got the money to make it happen.
No, what I got on this, you got to cater to your audience. You really have to cater to your audience. What legacy do you hope to leave behind through your work?
That's a great question. I mean, again, legacy, I think of legacy different now that I've got kids. And I hope that they would, again, see the work that I have done, that we've done, not necessarily as novel, revolutionary, but hopefully it was refreshing and the beginning of a wave that showed wealth and success and money and real estate can and does look different, right? Like if we look at the archetype of real estate success from a team standpoint, of money, of ownership of real estate, it is stale, male, and pale, right? Bunch of old white dudes that own a bunch of it, and that's just the reality of like a lot of systems in America. So I'm grateful from a legacy standpoint that we've hopefully set an example of what kind of younger people of color can do, but then also that we've hopefully inspired other folks to take a shot at partnership and realize that some of the best and biggest business opportunities, while there are amazing individuals that skyrocket to the top and like do all their things, a lot of the other really big businesses you interact with are the byproduct of partnership and of people willing to partner together to combine strengths for a lot of different reasons. So hopefully that's our legacy of setting an example of what partnership can do and showing that success can look a little bit different and have some different seasoning on it, right? Like just have a little bit more sauce and flow and feel different, smell different, look different. And I've enjoyed being able to do that. And as an owner and leader in it, really redefine kind of what success can look like and feel like, specifically in our DC market that has been a little bit more sterile and uptight over the years. It's been cool to be in these different circles where we are very much so the outlier, but grateful to be there and hopeful. And we know we're not the first. Excuse me, we're one of the first in a wave, but definitely not the last.
Now you're shaking it up. You're charging it up, brother. I love it. Who or what inspires or influences you the most in your work in 2024 or in the past?
Man, who or what? I mean, really, I just look at my business partners and my teammates, man. Like we've got like I put a thread the other day because I got off of X/Twitter because their owner's a nut. So I've been doing a lot of threads right now. And the thread I put out the other day, which is a sentiment I want to express to all folks, specifically business people, is we need to tell the folks around us that we think they're dope, that we think they're awesome, that we like respect what they do, we respect who they are. We need to do that more often and unsolicited, because we got a lot of times we got some really cool people around us, right? That are doing dope stuff. So I look at, my business partner Ryan, what he's been able to do with syndication and multifamily real estate, what he's been able to do just with our team of building out infrastructures and creating new opportunities for us to step into and seeing the future, seeing what's going to happen kind of before it happens. And I respect him and he inspires me. And I look at my partner Keith, who, as I said at the beginning, is the most natural salesman that I've ever met, but that comes from the way that he makes people feel, right? People that know him for a second feel like they are his best friend, right? They can be in his circle and in his space, feel heard, feel seen, feel welcomed. And that's something that they want to bring their friends into. So he's got a really natural kind of attractor and mayor of his community vibe that I respect, that in many ways I want to try to emulate and be more like, because that means a lot to people, right? To be heard, to be respected, to be welcomed into a community. Like, that's all we want. And he does that at such a high level and so naturally. It's just inspiring to see.
Nah, I believe it, man. That's everything, all those characteristics, all those attributes. If you can just bring on 100 of those people like that, you're gonna be the best of the best in the industry. And my final question, it's a selfish question. I'm 80 years old. I'm watching this. What's one piece of advice you want to give me?
If you're 80, well, right now, I think there's a lot of knowledge, right, that should be honored and respected and passed down from past generations. I feel like we have a lot of unfortunate ageism in our culture right now, and I'm guilty of it sometimes, making fun of boomers or other folks. But I'd encourage that person, one, to read a really cool book called From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks that talks about this concept of crystallized intelligence, meaning that while my body and my mind may not be as quick and as flexible and as on top of it as I used to be, all the things I've experienced over the years are extremely valuable when I can synthesize them and explain and teach them to others. So, I think I heard that question right. If you're an 80-year-old now, what would I say to you is that you've got a lot of value. I want to learn things from you. And if you're an 80-year-old realtor, I'd love to talk with you about the golden handoff and buying your business from you, because I'm sure you got a Rolodex of people that I could help service. We can still get you some checks moving forward.
That's hilarious. I can't wait to look back at this one day. And do you have any final words for the people listening to you about your synergies and anything of that nature?
Well, anybody showing up to, consume content like this, this is the right step, right, of making sure that you are making your world bigger with knowledge, with information, and quite frankly, with relationship, right? So, they need to stay plugged in to awesome podcasting platforms like yours and like this. They need to stay plugged in with you, someone who is intentional in bringing these conversations out to wider audiences, because the only way we navigate change, shifts, or just different realities of our market and our world is by connection. It's not by turning back in and just saying, oh, I only know what I know, and I'm going to stay here in my little bucket. I'm going to be afraid and angry and whatever. No. We need to step out of our door. We need to look outside. Don't just look in a mirror and scream in a mirror. We need to look through our windows, step out the windows, go outside and talk to the other folks in the market, right? Talk to our other fellow realtors, lenders, title folks in the business, stay in touch with them, and talk to consumers, man. Talk to consumers. Because while we know that there will be some changes in some of the functional parts of our business and industry, what do consumers know right now? What are they thinking? They're maybe a little fatigued and frustrated that the rates haven't gone down and prices haven't gone down, right? Consumer need to be supported and helped and communicated with is higher than ever. So that's the real space as you look at how you're going to navigate and figure out whatever happens next, whatever happens in the future of our market and economy and other things. It's talking with your people. Are you talking with them? Are you hearing them? Hearing what their concerns and fears are, and then are you being solutions oriented? Are you thinking of programming? Are you flexible about the different ways that you can actually help support them accomplish their goals? Because if you are in touch with people, you're hearing them, you're listening to them, you're working to find solutions and ways to help them, you'll be all right. If you're just stuck in the past ways, stuck in like, oh, this is the way it was before, and this new way sucks, and I don't like it, and I'm upset, and I'm frustrated, then you're going to stay in the past, and you're not going to move forward and make any money. You're done. But if you are out, stepping outside, staying in touch, staying active, staying connected, you'll be okay.
Thank you for your time, Harrison. Ladies and gentlemen, you just literally heard from a pioneer in the DC metro area. He literally gave you secrets and gems on how to prevail over adversity. Make sure to check him out and Google Harrison Beecher in 10 years and see where he's at. I'm telling you, he's going to be one of the most elite in our country. Harrison, thank you once again.
Pleasure, man. Thanks, man.
Until next time, brother.
All right. See you.
See ya.